CTV News at 5 with Hudson Mack.
Well, Saanich police had their hands full last night and they wound up with 3 bad eggs. Police say the evidence is stacked against them, and now there are 3 teens who are facing charges of assault. They're accused of throwing eggs at pedestrians from their moving car. When police caught up to the suspects on Glanford Avenue, officers found a number of full egg cartons along with empty ones, 89 eggs missing. Police arrested a 17-year-old boy who was driving and 2 16-year-old girls.
First complainant was in the area of the Wilkinson Road, Mann Avenue intersection. They had eggs thrown at them from what was described as quite a distinct BMW. 15 minutes later, at about 9:45, a gentleman walking in the area of Cedar Hill Road and Mackenzie Avenue was hit with eggs thrown again from a similarly described distinct BMW. Luckily, he wasn't hit in the face, but these eggs did cause some bruising, which is indicative of the velocity.
Didn't stop there, though. At about 11:30 last night, police were called to the Trans-Canada Highway at Mackenzie with reports of more teens throwing eggs at vehicles. If you were hit by one or know anyone who was hit by an egg last night, you're asked to contact Saanich Police. RCMP in Shawnigan Lake are investigating a case of road rage. Police say a 37-year-old man was pushed into oncoming traffic and was struck by a truck on the Trans-Canada Highway in a fight with another driver. Mounties say the roadside fisticuffs broke out after the 2 men exchanged insults. One accused the other of cutting him off in traffic. The injured driver was treated at the scene by paramedics and was released. The other men fled the scene, but later contacted RCMP. No charges have been laid in that case yet. The former firearms manager at Island Outfitters is now facing 19 charges, accused of stealing a cache of weapons from the store over a 4-year period. Police say 84 firearms and 64 restricted weapons were found in Lucky Jaguar's home. The list of charges include fraud, unsafe storage of a firearm, and 11 counts of trafficking in firearms and a restricted weapon. Jaguar is scheduled to appear in court next on August 28th. And if you are out enjoying the summer weather at Beacon Hill Park, you might want to bring your camera to capture the increasing number of blue herons who are now calling the park home. The City of Victoria says 54 heron nests were counted last week. That's a big jump, nearly 4 times the number of nests spotted last year. The herons have built their nests in the pine trees at the north and south end of Goodacre Lake and in the sequoias behind the Cameron Bandshell, and they're thriving. The nests have chicks and fledglings. The city says after losing the heron population a few years ago to eagle attacks, this is a surprise, but a bittersweet one.
We're absolutely thrilled to find now that we have 54. It's very good for us. It's good for the herons, but it's not all good news because the reason we have them here is that they've been chased out of other colonies on the island. So despite the fact that we have more here than we've had in several years, the overall numbers of nesting pairs on the island has diminished.
City crews at Beacon Hill Park say they will not be doing any major work in the area until late October so they don't disturb the herons when the rook leaves. They want to make sure they do nothing that will disturb the birds. Long-awaited improvements to the Malahat are finally being made. Road crews will be working the overnight shift to install an island-made solution to the high crash rate on the highway. Nearly 1.5 kilometers of medians are being formed at a concrete yard in Duncan. And starting next week, they will be placed strategically along the Malahat on some of the most dangerous stretches and its twists and turns. This is $250,000 towards an $8 million safety upgrade that'll add more than 5 kilometers of barriers by this time next year. There'll be flashing beacons, more signage, and new lanes to get on and off the highway. The province says its goal is to save lives.
I think as you see populations grow, you see people moving out of the city particularly, you see people commuting back and forth without question. You try and monitor that and try and stay on top of it. There's always far more projects than there's the ability to fund, whether we're talking British Columbia, Canada, or anywhere around the globe. But we will stay focused on that, and I see this as a great start. This additional $8 million will help improve safety tremendously, not just with medium barriers being put down the middle, but highway intersection improvements. There's some lighting improvements as well. So I think the public are going to be very satisfied with this.
Most of the work will be done overnight, but if crews have to work during the day, traffic will be cut to 1 lane in each direction. Phase 1 should be completed by next Friday. A Port Alberni man has been killed near Edmonton. 49-year-old Roderick Kaminsky was killed Saturday after he was hit by a minivan. He had traveled from Port Alberni by bus to visit family, and just seconds after stepping off the bus, he was hit while crossing the highway. The van did not stop. Police in Alberta are now looking for the driver of the vehicle. A small family of bald eagles is settling into a new man-made nest after the one they built was destroyed by someone who illegally cut down their tree. Until February, they lived in a tree in the Campbell River neighborhood. Police were furious when somebody illegally chopped down the tree, destroying the eagle's nest. While the Conservation Service investigated and considered charges, the neighbors watched helplessly as the eagles tried in vain to rebuild their nest, failing each time. Finally, the neighbors decided to take matters into their own hands, and they built a man-made nest, enlisting a friend who knew his way around treetops.
We had gathered branches and hay and long grass, and we'd got some geotech fabric and just all kinds of good things, we thought. And so up he went into this tree. We sent him up rope after he sort of fixed it up, and he intertwined the branches that he'd taken out and tied them onto the limbs with rope.
The eagles watched the entire operation from a tree nearby, and then the next morning they moved right in. Just weeks later, an egg hatched in the nest and a tiny eaglet joined the family.
I think the reason they probably went in there is because of the situation of time. I'm sure that if a nest hadn't been available, they would have lost their egg. And at this point, it looks like we have one eaglet. I actually still have, I saved the egg. The egg ended up at the base of the tree. And so I saved that in a container, and it's, I don't know, it's just been pretty much a miracle, I think.
The Conservation Service is considering charges under the Wildlife Act for destruction of the original nest. The tree had been labeled with a wildlife tree tag under the Provincial Wildlife Tree Stewardship Program. And there's a new study at the University of British Columbia revealing the extent to which plastic is littering our oceans. Researchers examined the stomach contents of seabirds off the Pacific coast, and they found there's been a big increase in the amount of plastic that the birds are consuming. It's killing them. The UBC study shows 92% of northern fulmars, a seabird found along the Oregon, Washington, and BC coastline, have been eating plastic. Researchers say the birds had twine, styrofoam, all kinds of plastic, even candy wrappers in their guts. One bird had 454 pieces of plastic in its stomach. Researchers say the amount of plastic that a seabird eats provides a snapshot of the amount of garbage that ends up in the ocean.